What is up? What is good, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. In light of recent reports out there, I thought a timely video would be to make about some of the most expensive transactions in CSGO history. Now, you guys got to keep in mind, a lot of transactions are for undisclosed fees or undisclosed amounts we do not know about. If I did miss a couple, though, feel free to drop comments down below. I can always update this video in the future, but especially given the recent past month or month and a half, we've had a couple of the most expensive transactions in CSGO history. I thought, why not kind of recap at least the last few years here and really experience how drastically these prices of players, as you guys can expect, have truly gone up, especially when it comes to buying out entire rosters. We first start off with what we presume to be the #1 spot and the highest transaction fee of all time currently in CSGO, that being Evil Geniuses rejoining CSGO, buying the NRG roster for a reported amount of $3 million. Now, just this past week, we talked about it, though. It could be 100 Thieves potentially joining that list at the #2 spot. Reported amounts or speculative amounts that Nell actually talked about, unless their contracts were expired, which they possibly could be. Let's presume they weren't for the sake of this video. That would be Renegades being sold to 100 Thieves for a fresh $2.2 million. Now, again, that transaction price is not guaranteed. It was the reported amount maybe Renegades wanted before those contracts were set to expire. 100 Thieves, they could have gotten a much better deal, and I hope they did, because another report, it was actually long ago when 100 Thieves first tried to join CSGO, and I say tried to join, but they actually did join for 2 or 3 weeks, because the reported price of the buyout, the trio, that being the Immortals boys, Henny, Lucas, FNX, $1 million they apparently could have paid for those 3 guys alone, which, by the way, those 3 guys, at least a couple of them, couldn't make the major. 100 Thieves failed to make the major due to the visa issues, and they dropped the entire roster. Just like that, a fresh $1 million could have been gone. Again, a lot of speculation when it comes to this list and these transaction fees, because a lot of that stuff is never publicly reported. And the craziest part about this is, I remember back in the day, I believe 2016, when FaZe first entered CSGO, it was right around the first time I started reporting on CSGO News. Everyone was freaking out for the entire year because FaZe Clan entered CSGO by buying the entire G2 roster. Reported amount $700,000, and people freaked out because that at the time was a gigantic sum of money to dish out just for a roster, which, by the way, I think many people can attribute to did not have any success whatsoever. They did not recoup probably any of that gigantic payment, but it's crazy to see speculatively, possibly, ever since then, we've had gigantic transactions, $3 million, $2.2 million, $1 million for 3 players if 100 Thieves did pay it, $700K a few years back, though. That was a gigantic investment, which, by the way, respect for FaZe Clan. They have never had issues when it comes to dishing out cash for those players. After they spent that $700K to acquire the G2 roster, I believe they got Kiyoshima from Envy for a short period of time. I believe they also got Alu from ENCE. Don't even mention the fact as well, further down on our list, we'll talk about NiKo. Actually, we'll just talk about it right now, guys. They eventually acquired him alongside Olaf Meister. They have dished out so much money, and further on this list, when it comes to the biggest individual transactions of all time, NiKo is one of those. The first speculative amount was actually $500,000. Other people denied this and said maybe it was closer to $300,000 for one individual NiKo. Either way, you join all of those requirements without the new and latest ones, that being Brokey and coldzera, which we know how expensive coldzera had to be. FaZe Clan, respect where it's due, because when it comes to biggest transactions in CSGO history, either by individuals or by teams or by totals, they are certainly probably the #1 organization for dishing out the big bucks just to try and make it work. And I hope it does. This past weekend for Blast Pro Copenhagen, it did. But when it comes to not being shy about spending money, FaZe Clan, they go down in history. And then, of course, most recently, we have Vitality and Shox. The first reported amount was upwards of $700,000. That just was not going to work. I've been told multiple times. I think Nell has also reported multiple times that number was around $400,000. They chose to buy Shox for $400K instead of choosing Kiyoshima for free. Obviously, just had to pay his salary. So, obviously, of recent times, that is the by far biggest buyout we have seen. When it comes down to the list, though, obviously, there's a lot of speculation out there and reports of other buyouts. I think it was Yugi and Snappy going to Optic was apparently a large buyout. FNS to Cloud9 was a fairly large one. People think $200,000. Alongside that, there are a few other ones. Hunter and Nexa to G2 was obviously a big one. At first, they were not going to be paid for, but then we have the, that's going to be the crazy owner. He actually has come forward and said he got 8 times the original amount that he wanted. So who knows how big that buyout was. We just don't know the exact numbers players. When it comes down to it, we have a few gigantic transactions out there, or I should say multiple. You look at EG spending $3 million, 100 Thieves possibly spending $2 million. Look at G2 selling to FaZe Clan for $700K. FaZe Clan not only spending $700K, ever since then, year by year, spending hundreds, if not millions of dollars to acquire new players out there, which is incredible in itself. Then you have Vitality taking a risk on Shocks with $400,000 himself. The list goes on and on of transactions out there we can assume are very, very expensive. And all of this starts with the first initial record, by the way. It was Scream, I believe 2 Titan, being bought for $160K was the reported amount. And ever since then, year by year, and imagine where Scream is now, that buyout price might even still be relevant to him. If not, it's probably gone down. A rarity here, but every other player out there, we have just seen increasing amounts of these players' incomes, and not only that, but their buyouts as well. It's been incredible to track. It's been incredible to see the amount of money going into the CSGO scene, and we are still tracking the most expensive transactions in CSGO history. If I did miss some, feel free to drop a comment down below, guys. Maybe I'll update this in the next month or so. But until then, until next time, take care of yourselves, and yeah, I'll see you guys back here sometime soon. Bye.